I'm sitting in the car waiting on my daughter. Come have Bible study with me. So this morning, I am studying the whole armor of God. And I've studied this before, but God is bringing it back up to me. And normally I know that when he is doing that, he is preparing me for something. So let's get prepared together. The whole armor of God is in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, starting at verse 10. And we are going to start at verse 10. And this may be a two-part video because I want to talk about verses 10 through 13 and then do a separate video for the remaining verses in regard to the whole armor. So starting at verse 10, it says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might." The words "be strong in the Lord," as I was reading them, it felt like a call or an instruction or a command that needs to be followed. The remainder of that sentence, "and in the strength of his might," I wrote a note here. It says you have to be able to recognize God for the powerhouse that he is. And as I was reading verse 10, it made me think about Psalm 104. I had studied this maybe like 3 years ago now, so I want to take you guys there to kind of give you some language or some verbiage that really displays who God is. So Psalm 104 in my Bible, the ESV, is titled, "O Lord my God, you are very great." So starting at verse 1, it says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed with splendor and majesty, covering yourself with light as a garment, stretching out the heavens like a tent. He lays the beams of his chambers on the waters. He makes the clouds his chariot. He rides on the wings of the wind. He makes his messengers winds, his ministers a flaming fire." Like, does that not sound good, or does that not feel good to your spirit to see God in this way? It just feels so beautiful, so majestic. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but when it said, "and in the strength of his might," it's like you have to know how strong God is. You have to know how much of a powerhouse that he is in order to be able to be strong in him and to trust in him, to trust in his strength and his might. You have to understand what he is capable of, not only by reading this text, but for yourself in your own life. Anyway, Psalm 104 is a great way for you to find a deeper reverence and love for God. So starting at verse 11, it says, "Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the enemy." And honestly, this kind of felt like a warning to me, or like a precursor to a warning. So I kind of meditated on it for a minute, and it says, "Put on the whole armor." So they're telling you, or it's telling you what to do. You know you need to put this armor on, and it immediately tells you why. That you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. Okay? The next part becomes, to me, and I wrote it, as I notated it, a disclaimer or a warning. So we're going to break this down bit by bit. Verse 12. "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against the authorities." So I'm going to stop there and read some of the notes that I have. I put that when we're distracted with physical matters, troubles, disputes, the enemy has the ability to backdoor us. And what do I mean by this? If we're putting all of our efforts and our attention to the things that we could see, we're totally missing the mark. We're totally missing the mark. I noted we are hybrid beings, part flesh, part spirit. There has to be a level of duality in the lives that we live. We have to bring balance to who we are as a human being and as a spiritual being. And if you're so busy and caught up in being a physical human being, you've completely dropped your identity as a spiritual being. So I also wrote, unnecessarily, you're not only exercising your physical strength, but you're also exercising your spiritual strength without realizing it. It's unconsciously. And I put a note here. I said that it may be time to consider how to conserve or preserve your spirit. Because again, this isn't a physical matter. The whole armor of God is for your spiritual protection. Let's go to the next part. It says, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness. As I was writing that, I wrote down, remember, we're fighting what we can't see. There's an invisible world that cannot be seen or accessed with the human eye. And just because it cannot be accessed with the human eye does not mean that it doesn't exist. Just because you cannot see it doesn't mean that it is not there. And that things that happen in the spiritual plane are not happening. They are very alive and well and present if you have the ability to see. On to the next. Against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. And the first thought that came to my mind, so is what I wrote down. It says, this is like leaders, rulers, etc., that have been put into high places or positions as like representation of God and the truth, but in reality they're operating in the exact same spirit, in the exact same energy that we are speaking about in this text. So it appears to your eye to be fine, but there is something else that is lurking beneath the surface. And this immediately made me think of Matthew 15. So let's hop there real quick. I probably should have done this off screen, but Matthew 15. I got stuff everywhere. And I think it's Matthew 15:8. It says, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Again, looks fine to the eye. You can see what the lips are saying. But on the inside, there's something totally different going on. Verse 13 says, therefore, take up the whole armor of God. I'm going to stop there. Let's talk about the word therefore. That is a statement within itself. Have you ever looked up the word therefore? Well, if you haven't, I have, because I'm a little nerd. And that's what I do. Therefore means for that reason, consequently, or because of that. Like, therefore, because of these things. Because we're not fighting against flesh and blood, but against rulers, but against authorities, against cosmic powers, against spiritual forces in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God. What does take up mean? And these words sound so simple, I know. We think we know the definitions to words until they take us much deeper. To take up something means to accept, to claim, to purchase, to adopt. Take up the whole armor of God. You can see I wrote this note to myself the other day while I was at work. And it says, to wear the full armor of God, you must embody each piece. And that is what this therefore is about. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God. Why? Why? That you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. So the question I wrote in my notebook, why is it so important that we take up the whole armor of God? And of course, scripture tells us that. Of course, it says that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. God knows that there are going to be trials and tribulations, things that you may come up against. But again, we are concerned, or have been concerned, with the physical, and it is time to shift our attention and perspective to the spiritual. The last portion of that verse 13, it says stand firm. Stand firm means to remain steadfast, resolute, unwavering in your convictions, your decisions, your position, and your faith. Refusing to yield or to change despite opposition, pressure, or difficulty. So now that we know that we need to take up the armor, let's talk about